The New Orleans Saints shocked everybody when they drafted Tyler Shough with the 40th overall pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, making him the third quarterback off the board. I will say this past year's quarterback class was not viewed in a very high manner, but many at least expected Shedeur Sanders to go before Tyler Shough, but his stock really rose up the last couple of weeks as it became very apparent teams like the Saints had a lot of interest in the former Louisville product. And we've gotten our first look at Shough in minicamp and also the first week at training camp, and I can't say he's been very impressive to me. I will preface this by saying I was not a huge fan of Shough when he was coming out of college. I just don't love older players. He's going to be 26 years old this year as a rookie. I mean, the guy literally began his college career in 2018 at Oregon. He spent 3 years there, could not really get on the field until his sophomore season in 2020, but then he transferred to Texas Tech for 3 more seasons, and then finally as a third-year senior he broke out for the Cardinals in 2024. He threw for over 3,100 yards, he had 23 touchdowns to only 6 interceptions, so very efficient, especially passing the ball down the field. Now it is fair to mention that injuries were a huge factor in why Shough stayed in college for so long. He suffered 3 major injuries with the Red Raiders. He broke his collarbone, then re-injured the same collarbone the following season, and then in 2023, his final season there, he fractured his left fibula. Some freak plays ended up happening, but at the end of the day, he did suffer some severe injuries year after year. So really the entirety of the draft process, I had the stance that I'm not taking a 26-year-old quarterback that has several major injuries and really only one good season to show very early in the draft. It just did not make a ton of rational sense to me. Maybe like in round 5 or 6, I would take a flyer on Shough because of the talent that he does show, but I really believe in no world was I going to take this guy inside the top 100 picks for all the risks that he did have. But we obviously saw during the draft that his stock was a lot higher than many assumed, and some teams like the Saints actually viewed him as a fairly good prospect in a weak quarterback class. And this is not to say that Shough does not have his pros as a player. He's got really good size, over 6'5", 225 pounds. I would also say he's a plus arm, which is above average in NFL standards, and he did showcase the ability to use a bunch of different arm angles, do some sidearm throws, which can definitely help his arm talent even more improve at the next level. And if you watch the tape, he did make some fairly impressive throws game in and game out. His mobility also isn't bad. He simply has pretty good physical traits, and I think that was a big reason why he was picked inside the top 50. But there are a couple of negatives with his game as well. I think he can clean up his accuracy. He only completed 62% of his passes last season for Louisville, but definitely his biggest weakness is under pressure. He refuses a lot of times to sit in the pocket, take a big hit, and actually get a completion. And maybe that is due to the amount of injuries that he's had in his college career, and he's maybe a little bit gun shy now. But if I'm taking a quarterback that early in the draft, I don't want somebody that's going to panic under pressure and just make some boneheaded plays because they're scared to get hit. And I think if you watch his tape, you do see that a decent amount at Louisville, and I think that is something that could be problematic in the NFL. Now, specifically in terms of what he's done so far in Saints practice, I think it's a lot of what we actually saw in his college career. He's made a couple of really nice throws, one notably an over route to Juwan Johnson, just putting it right over the defender's head with a lot of nice accuracy and anticipation. But personally, a lot of these clips that I saw on social media, and I really went through like everything that I could find in terms of public video of Tyler Shough so far, I just really didn't see a lot that excited me. I actually thought he was a little bit more mobile than he actually shown so far in camp. It appears he's holding onto the ball way too long, especially like in the 7-on-7 drill. He's just not getting rid of the football and then is just going to run for 2 yards. Like, why not just at least give somebody a chance? And then there were a couple other 11-on-11 plays where he holds the ball for too long, and it's definitely going to be a sack in real game action. So I think there's been a couple of plays where he does showcase some nice arm talent, but the overarching amount of plays that we've seen have been negative in terms of holding onto the ball too long, pretty bad under pressure, not super mobile, and that has resulted in him not really running away with the starting quarterback position. I think most people expected going into camp that he was going to be the week 1 starter for the Saints, but Kellen Moore has made it fairly clear that all 3 of the quarterbacks on the roster, and Jake Haener, Tyler Shough, and Spencer Rattler, are all going to be getting quarterback 1 reps, and this is a real competition. We still are very early on in the process, but it seems like Spencer Rattler has been the most consistent and best performer the first week of training camp, and this isn't a normal scenario where Rattler already has a year year under his belt running the same type of offense. Kellen Moore is the new head coach. He's bringing in an entirely new system, so it's kind of even playing field between the offenses and the quarterbacks of them having to learn it and understand it. And Moore did speak kind of on the new system and Tyler Shough learning it. He said every opportunity, especially for Tyler as a first-time rookie in training camp, every day there's a new install, new material that maybe is a first time for him. So he's going through that process. I think he's doing an excellent job. And after reading all of the reports on Shough so far from the early practices, it does seem like the biggest appeal that he's making to the Saints coaching staff is how intelligent he is, especially in the classroom. And I think spending so many years in college and understanding offenses and being a part of just a meeting room is a big reason why he's able to pick things up so quickly early on. Moore said Tyler's experience, certainly there's value to that. You can see in the classroom aspect of this thing, his ability to process football at a very easy rate in the classroom. It's really, really good when you throw him up there and you're watching film and you're talking about plays and concepts. He's got great exposure and he's got great experience that he can lean on. And a big part of playing NFL quarterback is what you can do mentally. So that is a huge plus that Shough can understand these concepts and he is learning fairly quickly. But I do think regardless of who the starting quarterback ends up being for the Saints, I do like what they've done to build a pretty solid foundation on their offense. They've spent their last 2 first-round picks on Kelvin Banks Jr. and Talisa Fuaga, so I really like that young tackle duo moving forward. They still have Eric McCoy and Cesar Ruiz on the interior of their offensive line, which are really solid players. And then weaponry, you still have Alvin Kamara, who's a great receiving back out of the backfield, Chris Olave if he can stay healthy, and then Rashid Shaheed, one of the best deep threats in the entire league. They bring in an offensive head coach now who has a long track record of turning around offenses with the Cowboys and this past season with the Philadelphia Eagles. So I do like the infrastructure for a young quarterback on the Saints roster. I just don't think any of these guys are the answer, and regardless of who ends up starting the most games for the Saints this year, they're going to be one of the worst teams in the league. And from the vibe that I get from Saints fans, I think they almost expect that this year, and they're looking forward to next year's quarterback class and potentially getting another first-round quarterback to kind of take over. However, I do think if you're the Saints and you have 3 different paths to take with 3 different quarterbacks and they all are going to end up at the exact same end result, you might as well play the second-round pick and just see if you can't get anything out of him, maybe even increase his trade value to maybe trade in the future to be like a backup somewhere. There is simply just nothing to lose. So if I was in the Saints' shoes, if I was Kellen Moore, I'm just going to start Tyler Shough regardless if maybe Rattler looks better than him in training camp. I mean, the win total for the Saints this year is at 5.5, and Vegas really thinks they're going to be a bottom 5 team in the league this year. And to combine with that, most predictions that I see have them finishing 4th in the NFC South, which is known as one of the worst divisions in football. So at this point, it would be a huge, I mean, shocking surprise if the Saints somehow won like 8 or 9 games, was in the playoff mix, and one of these quarterbacks broke out. And I really just can't get there with a rookie head coach and a few quarterbacks that I don't believe in likely going to be starting the entire season. But at the very least, New Orleans is going to be very interesting to watch early in the season to see what Tyler Shough can do if he does get the nod to be the starting quarterback. Maybe he really surprises me, emerges the next couple of weeks of training camp and starts off the season really well, but I'm heavily betting against that happening. But that is our first look at Tyler Shough and our practice update of him so far in his NFL career. I want to know what you think. Do you agree with me and have your doubts about him being a good NFL quarterback, or are you buying some Shough stock before the season begins? Let me know what your opinion is in the comment section below. But be sure to subscribe to the channel, as only 1.1% of you who watch these videos are subscribed, which is crazy. I'll be sure to update you guys on how Shough does in the next few weeks of camp and also some of the various other rookies across training camp. But thank you guys so much for watching the video, and I will catch you guys in my next one.